Welcome to the Conquerors podcast. My name is Manish Kata, and with me, like most weeks, I have Jeff Goodnow. How are you, sir?
I am doing peachy keen. Peachy keen without sleep. So let me steal just a minute from the intro. Look, everybody knows I travel in an RV. Nothing says fun. Now, before I make fun of my wife, nothing says fun like waking up to a mouse in the RV. 2 nights in a row. About 3 hours of sleep in the last 70 whatever hours. I can't do math anymore in my head. But yeah, now if it were a spider, then I would be the one who screamed bloody murder, and I fully expected the police to show up. But yeah, it's a toughie. So if I do anything stupid during this podcast, blame the mouse.
We'll just cut it out.
We've named him Red October, so I'm on the hunt.
All right.
All right, go back to the intro, bro. What are we doing?
All right. So, we wanted to talk about a couple different things. I'm going to start with an email I got from an advisor last spring, roughly, that caused you and I to sit down and do some self-reflection and try to figure out where we want to go with not only the company, but our tone, the way we communicate, all of that stuff. And so here is... listen, there's a lot of emails back and forth. This was the final conclusion to the email string. I also do not like your webpage nor your video comments and how you handle them. It lacks a lot from a back office perspective. In addition, your humor and wise characterizations is not appropriate. I like detailed info, research reports from my managers that is drilled down info with facts, not humor, funny talk, all in print with attached resources. I read that word for word, so excuse the grammar.
Yeah, that's a mouthful for sure.
Well, listen, you expect things from YouTube comments and whatever. Like, there's trolls. What you deal with it. Life moves on. But this was an actual advisor who works with us who called me out particularly on the way Potomac communicates. And I recall then calling you and saying, a couple things. First of all, it's probably not a fit anymore. Maybe we should part ways amicably, number one. Number two, are we going down the right path? Because I was brought up in this industry to be vague, right? When you do market commentary, don't say bull or bear, kind of go down the middle and use words like possibly or likely.
May.
And that's how I was taught to write commentary, not only just because of compliance, but you just don't want to put yourself in a corner, and that's how Wall Street has always been. And I still get criticized to this day, and I swear there's a large TAMP out there, and I'm not going to call them out by name, that they won't sign us up, mainly because of my mouth and the things we say, and I don't have a fucking suit and tie on. And so we wanted to talk about this. What say you?
Yeah, it was one of those every once in a while you get a moment of decision, and that's really what this boils down for us. It wasn't so much that particular advisor per se, right? It was about the fact that someone is giving us a very clear and distinct vision of what they want, and I look for these kinds of things in other strategists, right? My interview of Kim Arthur at Main Management, I said, what is the passion that drives the action? And that's what this made me think of when we started talking about this as a podcast topic. That was for us a time to look at what our passion is and what drives our action, and to create some blah, boring 5-page PDF that has lots of facts and charts and then a bunch of mays and maybes and possiblies. It wasn't us. I mean, obviously we're talking about it on a podcast, for crying out loud, so clearly we went the other direction. But that's where we started. That was a moment of decision for us.
Yeah, and we've evolved since then as well in expanding it. But I think we sat down and said, look, we want to be transparent.
Right.
And obviously there's compliance reasons why you have to hold back certain things. But from an opinion standpoint, from how you want to be perceived, we want to be fully transparent. And we want to record and communicate the way we talk, the way you and I would talk to each other.
Right.
And so we doubled down. We took this piece of constructive criticism and ran with it and said, you know what, we are on the right path. Let's make it even better, and let's be more transparent. So with that being said, we have gone back and forth about how we think advisors currently, the way they communicate to clients, is broken. Why is that?
Well, I think part of it is just referring to one of our other podcasts of the client expectations change, right? The way clients live, we talk about an end client, the way they live their lives and interact. I mean, I literally just ordered Uber Eats for lunch, right? I didn't have a notepad that I wrote down an order and faxed to them, right? I hopped on my phone and I had a gift card in it. So there you go. The same sort of thing is happening, like it or not. Clients are living their lives differently from kid to grandparent. So that's where advisors, I think, if you don't change your style, that's okay, right? But are there opportunities to improve your client experience for at least those that are changing? And that's why we're having this conversation. So I want to point out a couple of things, and that is just the difference between planned, structured stuff and on demand. And I think that's maybe part of the topic we want to touch on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let's do a real life example. So every month since, 2003 or 4, I've written, Jesus Christ, it's been that long.
I know.
I've written a monthly commentary.
You old.
I haven't missed a month. Yeah, even with children being born or whatever reason, I have not missed a month for almost 16 years. But, it's a planned thing. And what I always struggle with is, let's say I'm writing the commentary on a Wednesday, and literally Wednesday afternoon we get some big indicator changes or something happens. You put yourself in this bind where you have this structured dissemination of information, and it just doesn't jive well with how the world works anymore, right? So that's example number one, where we said, all right, how do we change this? And we just started it recently, and the feedback has been tremendous, where I literally am sitting down in front of my computer, just popping open the webcam. It's not produced. I'm doing a screen share. There's a disclosure at the end. Hit done, and it gets sent out. And it's just, me going through charts and talking about markets. And I can do that anytime I want. I can do it, at night, in the morning, during the day, whenever. And so that's an example of on demand, right? Just being able to get it done.
Absolutely. And so I'm gonna expand upon that a little bit, and let's take a vision of what most of us have experienced throughout our careers, which is let's just say to advisors, right? The webinar. Right? What happens? We all, as a firm, in our example, right, we would spend time trying to create this content of a webinar, whether it's one or two of us doing it, whatever, that's fine. We'd have to create the notifications, email invites, that sort of thing, right? Send those out in that format. Hope that a bunch of people will register. We have to get all their information, right? All these things, and then half of them don't show up. We're disappointed. The reality is they were busy with clients, so we do this webinar. We get a few hokey questions at the end, if we do questions, and then send out a recording to everybody, including those that were in attendance or not. And basically, we cried bullshit on that. So what we started doing when we earlier this year, when we had a webinar scheduled, we just decided, you know what, screw this. Let's record the webinar, and then just send the actual information out. Here's a link to the webinar. That's so easy. Think about that. That took 10 seconds to explain versus the 12 steps and headache, heartbreak, and whatever of trying to make sure all those pieces and things worked. Why not just create the content and disseminate it? Here it is, free. So that lends itself to gated content versus transparency. You want to open that door?
Yeah, so there's a new app called Clubhouse that everyone's raving about. And of course, anytime a new app comes out, I'm always the last one to adopt it because I just don't feel like adding anything else to my life. But I went ahead and signed up to take a look. And apparently what they're trying to do is disrupt webinars altogether. And so Clubhouse is an app where you, me, 20 other people could just have a conversation going at like 10 a.m. on Eastern, and anyone can join, right? Depending on your interests. So you can launch a conversation at any random time to talk about, tactical management or marketing or whatever, and random people can join that conversation. Now, from an advisor point of view, obviously there's compliance and things like that. You just got to be careful what you say. But it's just another avenue. I think everything is going away from gated content. I think gated content is a horrible way to approach things. No one cares about your content. You are not that special. Produce the content and distribute it out. And we're learning that as well, more and more. You can always push the envelope to ungate your content and to make it available to everyone.
Yeah, it's an interesting, interesting aspect, and that's a lot of what we do is, of course, create content, and then we have some little snippets and things, even like our podcast that we'll send out, and the whole idea is create trust, using those smaller pieces, create trust in the content that we are providing, and the information we are providing, the education we are providing, and if that's interesting enough for an advisor to want to know more, then they'll reach out and give us all of their information because they'll have questions and they'll want to talk to us, right? And so that's really the challenge becomes, in this case, us or you, if you are an advisor or another business trying to create content, right? To make your content enjoyable enough to be able to be received well. I mean, look, we've all been in the sleeper webinars and those sorts. We're kind of picking on webinars, but there's a lot of different types of content. Podcasts can be sleepers. There's all kinds of things. And it just continues to go along that lines of what can we do to make things simple, transparent, easy access, and on demand.
Well, look, I got into a little Twitter argument the other day with someone who, I had set out there that your marketing department should be as much as, if not bigger than your operation department. And a couple of people are like, well, you're bad at marketing if you need that many people. And I think the term marketing it gets a bad rap because it's just content creation. It's all the same thing, right? We want to be able to create content that lessens the need for that wholesaler who's checking in with you and following up, and by creating content it gets rid of that, right? You're allowed to access what I say is succeed on your home turf, access the information when you need it and when you want it, and I think advisors should open their mind to that concept of just putting out information about their value add to clients and letting the end consumer consume it.
Well, and this is one that I think here's a little tidbit that I think is a good one for advisors to think about. As you say, open their mind to what the possibilities are. Absolutely, there's value in getting one of your clients call and they have a question about how to do something, and that's great that you walk them through it or a teammate walks them through it. That's wonderful. There's also value in that same question that's answered 3-5 times a week to go ahead and create some video content about that. And that can be part of your dissemination to your clientele. That's a value add, because guess what? If they forget it this time and they don't have to do whatever that thing is again for another 6 months or a year, and they know that some of these things, I'm not talking about just an FAQ, right? But you can just create, it's a more value add opportunities and the ways that video can be helpful for you.
There's so much pushback, and I don't get why. Like, listen, you don't have to go out and create TikToks and social media accounts and whatever. I mean, it's just a matter of email marketing still works, right? Email updates still work. Just do it in a video format, and don't do it on a scheduled time, right? Don't do a quarterly newsletter or even a monthly newsletter. I don't know how much longer I want to continue even doing that. Why? Just push it out when it needs to be pushed out.
Right. Well, Manish, you're going to laugh at this, but this is, you're right. You and I get to doing these things, and we do them so often they become habit, right? And so I mentioned I used Uber Eats earlier today. Well, at the end of the Uber Eats, right, you give your driver information. And I realized that trying to find a particular RV spot number inside of an RV park, if you're not familiar with that sort of thing, is not necessarily easy. And it's funny because I realized as I was going through agony trying to type a simple enter, turn right, take the second left, I'm the first RV on the right, I so wanted to send him a little video. You know, it's like, hey, here's a picture from the thing as you go in, and draw whatever, because that's just what I'm used to in email and so forth. I don't answer 90% of the time. I answer with a short video that's easy to produce, very, very quickly, instead of typing out 14 lines of information in an email. So it's just that same sort of thing, right? But you get used to it, and that's other things in life you start to realize how painful it is to do all this typing. And so I just thought that was kind of funny.
I mean, listen, maybe it's generational. I don't know. If someone calls me and leaves me a voicemail and it's a sales call, like, no one wants to be called anymore. No one wants to be bothered. No one wants to get checked in on. It's just, if you want information, you know where to get it. You know where to go. And so the genesis of this episode is really that we keep noticing how advisors are communicating to clients, and some are doing a really good job, but a lot just aren't. Yeah. And hopefully this changes. Maybe a year in a pandemic with new tools allows this to change. But what I mean, conclusion here, like what's I think what are your two sides? What would you do as an advisor first and foremost to move this in the right direction?
The first step is always the hardest. Right? So just decide what your first step is. And that, honestly, if you're listening to this podcast, your first step is probably to just call me. Right? Just call me. Or better yet, shoot me. If you have you may already have my email, click on the link and schedule some time for us to talk, because I can help you through that as far as what, for your clientele, what maybe makes the most sense as a simple first step. Start to see if your clients enjoy that kind of engagement, because I have yet to have anybody who started down this road, took a step of using more technology to improve the client experience, come back and say, wow, that sucked. My clients hate it. So yeah, who knows? Maybe we just have an odd audience. And if you're part of our odd audience, we love you.
Yeah, for sure. And so, I think also what matters a lot is to ask for feedback, ask the clients for feedback, see what they're currently watching or doing, or how they consume information. You can't assume that people want to drive across town to come in and meet with you.
Exactly. So. Don't assume. Ask. Just ask and see what they say. Would you find it more convenient if I did X? And see what they say. So, any other thoughts?
Yeah, just I think that email we got was eye-opening. I mean, I think we burned all our brochures at that point. I don't think we've printed anything for 6-7 months at this point. I remember this was actually a kind of a struggle, right? Because I talked to Jen and I was like, hey, she had mentioned, like, don't people want brochures? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out what happens if they ask. I mean, has anyone asked you for brochures?
I've probably had 2 or 3 in the last year requests, but my response when I explain that we don't have any physical brochures anymore, and here's why, they're perfectly fine with it. I mean,
yeah. Well, there's also so much content now. Like, you can,
correct.
If you want to know anything you want to know about us, correct, personally and professionally,
and that does
just
help.
Open the website.
Yeah. So Manish, I think that's important, right? Part of the brochure, if you think about whether it be an advisor's brochure, or a third-party manager's brochure, etc., right? What's the point of the brochure? It's to let everybody get to know them. Well, this is where having a solid website, good content. I mean, we have blogs, we have podcasts. There's no reason that somebody doesn't know us. And creating a brochure it's like, well, that should already be part of the website. There, it's fully accessed 24/7.
And also, getting to know us has also worked against us a couple times. So,
yeah, well,
to each, yeah.
That's okay.
So
wait, I think it was Groucho Marx who said, "I don't want to be a member of any club that won't have me as a member first." So, you know what? If somebody doesn't like what we're doing or how we're doing it, that's okay. That's okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to communicating to your clients the way you want to be communicated to. And that's the best way to conclude this.
Yeah. All right. So what's your recommendation?
Tiger Woods HBO Max documentary. I was putting it off for a little bit. It's pretty good. I mean, it goes through his whole history from start to finish. So Tiger's, I think, 4 years older than me. So when I was roughly around college is when he went on that streak where he was just destroying everyone. It was a really good documentary. It's 2 parts to it. It goes into his, issues later on in life and where he is now. He seems pretty happy and content now. So I think it's worth watching. It was entertaining and good. It was done really well.
Yeah, I would agree. It's one of those. It's hard to talk about without talking about a whole bunch. So we'll just leave it at that. But it was definitely eye-opening, and I think that's pretty critical. I don't know if he, it's definitely I learned a lot. I'll just leave it like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, to have that drive, for anyone to have that sort of drive, it puts a toll on your mental stability. So yeah, we won't ruin it for anyone.
All right.
What do you got?
Yeah. So here we were talking about the RV park. So here's a new app.
So didn't we decide? Wait, didn't we decide? It was a running joke how many times you'd mention RV in the podcast. You're on 3 or 4 at this point.
Yeah, probably. In this particular case, yes. So RV Trip Wizard it's rvtripwizard.com. They've got a nice application or website, if you will. It's great for RVers, and this is one of those things where, look, I realize not every advisor who's listening is going to be an RVer or give a rat's ass about it, but you probably have clients that do, and so knowing a little bit or having a little tip or a little hand, that's a nice feature. So if you have questions about it, give me a call or just go check it out. It's pretty cool. It's very easy to plan your route with fuel stops and other things like that. It's just a lot easier to do than to try and just do Google Maps and hope that it gets you there with the right roads and that sort of thing.
Cool. That should be it. Just quick updates. Check out YouTube. We're adding a lot more to that, including some new mini-series that we're coming out with. I won't reveal too much, but they'll all be on our YouTube page as we move to off our own video hosting setup. So we love the comments. We love the feedback, even the constructive criticism. It helps us actually, create more things, and it helps us as a business too.
Right.
You got to know what you can change and improve on. And so it's helpful to get that feedback. So keep it coming. Subscribe to YouTube if you can, and that should be it.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate the listeners.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye.